Power is taken, not given. The person who asks for authority automatically disqualifies themselves from receiving it. This paradox operates across every context where influence matters, from corporate boardrooms to family dynamics, because requesting permission signals that you lack the capability to command respect naturally. When someone asks for power, they reveal that they believe others control whether they deserve it. This submission to external judgment immediately positions them as subordinate to whoever they are asking, making it impossible for those people to view them as equals, much less superiors. Watch how this unfolds in corporate environments. The employee who asks for a promotion, requests additional authority, or seeks permission to lead projects typically receives less consideration than colleagues who simply begin acting with greater responsibility. The requesting employee signals that they view advancement as something granted by others rather than something earned through demonstrated capability. This perspective makes supervisors question whether they possess the confidence necessary for leadership roles. Meanwhile, the colleague who identifies problems and implements solutions without seeking permission typically receives recognition and formal authority after demonstrating their capability through action rather than request. Political environments demonstrate this dynamic clearly. The candidate who asks voters for power typically appears weaker than one who presents themselves as already possessing leadership qualities that voters should recognize rather than grant. The requesting candidate positions themselves as supplicant, seeking favor rather than leader offering guidance, making voters question whether they have the strength necessary for governance responsibilities. The candidate who speaks and acts with authority, presenting policy solutions as matters of expertise rather than opinion, typically generates more confidence because they demonstrate leadership rather than requesting permission to lead. Social group dynamics reveal how authority distribution responds to assumption rather than petition. The person who asks to be group leader, seeks group approval for decisions, or requests permission to organize activities typically remains in follower positions. Their requests for authority signal that they view leadership as something groups bestow, rather than something capable individuals naturally provide, making group members reluctant to grant authority to someone who appears to need their permission. The person who begins organizing, making decisions, and guiding group activities without seeking approval typically becomes the informal leader because they demonstrate leadership capability through action rather than application. Parenting contexts show how authority establishment affects child compliance and family structure. Parents who ask children for permission to enforce rules, seek child approval for decisions, or request cooperation through negotiation typically experience more behavioral challenges. Their requests for authority signal that children control whether parents can exercise parental responsibilities, teaching children that adult authority is optional rather than fundamental to family structure. Parents who establish rules, enforce consequences, and make decisions without seeking child permission typically achieve better behavioral compliance because children learn that parental authority is inherent rather than negotiable. Romantic relationships demonstrate how power dynamics respond to assertion rather than supplication. The partner who asks for relationship control, seeks permission to make decisions, or requests approval for personal choices typically finds themselves in increasingly subordinate positions. Their requests for authority signal that they view their partner as controlling relationship power distribution, making the partner less likely to respect their judgment or defer to their preferences. The partner who makes decisions confidently, sets personal boundaries, and acts independently without seeking permission typically commands more respect and influence within the relationship. Business negotiation environments reveal how authority affects deal structure and outcome quality. The negotiator who asks for permission to present terms, seeks approval for negotiating positions, or requests authority to make decisions typically achieves less favorable agreements. Their requests signal that they lack authority to finalize deals, encouraging counterparts to demand additional concessions or seek higher-level approval that bypasses their negotiating power. Negotiators who present terms confidently, make decisions within their authority, and act as final decision-makers typically secure better deals because they demonstrate control over their negotiating position. Academic environments show how intellectual authority responds to demonstration rather than application. The scholar who asks for recognition, seeks permission to challenge established theories, or requests authority to lead research initiatives typically receives less academic respect. Their requests signal that they view academic authority as something institutions grant rather than something earned through intellectual contribution, making colleagues question their scholarly confidence. Scholars who present research findings confidently, challenge existing theories through evidence, and lead research initiatives based on expertise typically gain academic authority through demonstrated competence rather than institutional permission. Medical practice context demonstrate how patient confidence responds to physician authority rather than physician humility. Doctors who ask patients for permission to recommend treatments, seek patient approval for medical decisions, or request authority to determine care protocols typically generate less patient trust. Their requests signal uncertainty about medical expertise, making patients question whether they possess the knowledge necessary to provide effective healthcare guidance. Physicians who recommend treatments confidently, explain medical decisions authoritatively, and establish care protocols based on expertise typically generate more patient confidence and better treatment compliance. Investment advisory relationships reveal how client confidence responds to advisor authority rather than advisor deference. Financial advisors who ask clients for permission to recommend investments, seek approval for portfolio strategies, or request authority to make financial decisions typically lose client trust. Their requests signal uncertainty about financial expertise, making clients question whether they possess the knowledge necessary to provide effective investment guidance. Advisors who recommend investment confidently, implement strategies authoritatively, and make portfolio decisions based on expertise typically maintain client confidence and achieve better investment outcomes. Legal practice environments show how client respect responds to attorney authority rather than attorney uncertainty. Lawyers who ask clients for permission to pursue legal strategies, seek approval for case tactics, or request authority to make legal decisions typically lose client confidence. Their requests signal uncertainty about legal expertise, making clients question whether they possess the knowledge necessary to provide effective legal representation. Attorneys who recommend strategies confidently, pursue tactics authoritatively, and make legal decisions based on expertise typically maintain client trust and achieve better case outcomes. Technology leadership context demonstrate how team respect responds to technical authority rather than technical deference. Technical leaders who ask team members for permission to implement solutions, seek approval for architectural decisions, or request authority to determine technical direction typically lose team confidence. Their requests signal uncertainty about technical expertise, making team members question whether they possess the knowledge necessary to provide effective technical guidance. Leaders who implement solutions confidently, make architectural decisions authoritatively, and establish technical direction based on expertise typically maintain team respect and achieve better project outcomes. Crisis management situations reveal how stakeholder confidence responds to leadership authority rather than leadership consultation. Crisis leaders who ask stakeholders for permission to implement solutions, seek approval for crisis responses, or request authority to manage situations typically lose stakeholder trust. Their requests signal uncertainty about crisis management capabilities, making stakeholders question whether they possess the competence necessary to handle emergency situations effectively. Leaders who implement solutions confidently, execute responses authoritatively, and manage crises based on expertise typically maintain stakeholder confidence and achieve better crisis outcomes. Sales environments show how customer confidence responds to salesperson authority rather than salesperson deference. Salespeople who ask customers for permission to recommend products, seek approval for sales proposals, or request authority to close deals typically achieve lower sales results. Their requests signal uncertainty about product expertise, making customers question whether they possess the knowledge necessary to provide effective purchasing guidance. Salespeople who recommend products confidently, present proposals authoritatively, and close deals based on expertise typically achieve better sales outcomes and maintain customer confidence. Coaching relationships demonstrate how athlete respect responds to coaching authority rather than coaching uncertainty. Coaches who ask athletes for permission to implement training programs, seek approval for competitive strategies, or request authority to make athletic decisions typically lose athlete confidence. Their requests signal uncertainty about coaching expertise, making athletes question whether they possess the knowledge necessary to provide effective athletic guidance. Coaches who implement programs confidently, execute strategies authoritatively, and make decisions based on expertise typically maintain athlete respect and achieve better competitive outcomes. Creative industry dynamics reveal how creative authority responds to artistic confidence rather than artistic deference. Creative professionals who ask clients for permission to pursue creative directions, seek approval for artistic decisions, or request authority to determine creative outcomes typically receive less creative respect. Their requests signal uncertainty about creative expertise, making clients question whether they possess the artistic judgment necessary to produce effective creative work. Creative professionals who pursue directions confidently, make artistic decisions authoritatively, and determine outcomes based on creative expertise typically maintain client confidence and produce better creative results. Entrepreneurial environments show how investor confidence responds to founder authority rather than founder uncertainty. Entrepreneurs who ask investors for permission to pursue business strategies, seek approval for operational decisions, or request authority to manage companies typically receive less investment confidence. Their requests signal uncertainty about business capabilities, making investors question whether they possess the competence necessary to build successful companies. Entrepreneurs who pursue strategies confidently, make decisions authoritatively, and manage companies based on business expertise typically maintain investor confidence and achieve better business outcomes. The psychological mechanisms driving these patterns operate through confidence assessment systems that evolve to identify capable leaders during situations requiring decisive action rather than democratic consultation. Humans unconsciously evaluate authority based on confidence signals because historically, groups needed leaders who could make decisions quickly during crises where consultation might be fatal and uncertainty could be disastrous. These evaluation systems persist in modern contexts where requesting permission often signals incompetence rather than humility, creating situations where demonstrated confidence generates more respect than expressed uncertainty. Understanding why authority responds to assertion rather than application enables more strategic approaches to leadership development, professional advancement, and any situation where influence affects outcomes. The individual who demonstrates capability through action typically receives more authority than one who seeks authority through request because action provides evidence while requests provide only promises. This applies across career advancement, relationship management, and any competitive context where being viewed as capable affects opportunities more than being viewed as humble or deferential. The most effective approach involves building genuine competence that naturally produces confident action rather than seeking authority through permission that signals inadequacy. The person who acts with authority typically receives authority because others recognize competence through demonstration rather than description, making formal recognition follow capability rather than precede it. Most importantly, they understand that true power requires no external validation because it generates respect through effectiveness rather than approval through permission. The pattern emerges consistently. Those who assume authority based on competence typically receive more respect and influence than those who request authority based on ambition, because assumption demonstrates confidence while requests reveal dependence on others' judgment. Military leadership environments demonstrate how command authority responds to decisive action rather than permission-seeking behavior. Military officers who ask subordinates for permission to issue orders, seek approval for tactical decisions, or request authority to command operations typically lose troop confidence and unit effectiveness. Their requests signal uncertainty about command capabilities, making subordinates question whether they possess the leadership competence necessary to make life-and-death decisions during combat situations. Officers who issue orders confidently, make tactical decisions authoritatively, and command operations based on military expertise typically maintain troop respect and achieve better mission outcomes. International business contexts reveal how market authority responds to strategic confidence rather than strategic deference. Business executives who ask market partners for permission to enter markets, seek approval for expansion strategies, or request authority to compete internationally typically achieve less favorable market positions. Their requests signal uncertainty about competitive capabilities, making partners and competitors question whether they possess the business competence necessary to succeed in global markets. Executives who enter markets confidently, implement strategies authoritatively, and compete based on business expertise typically achieve better market outcomes and maintain competitive advantages. Educational administration environments show how institutional authority responds to administrative confidence rather than administrative uncertainty. School administrators who ask faculty for permission to implement policies, seek approval for educational decisions, or request authority to manage institutions typically lose faculty respect and institutional effectiveness. Their requests signal uncertainty about administrative capabilities, making faculty question whether they possess the leadership competence necessary to manage complex educational institutions. Administrators who implement policies confidently, make decisions authoritatively, and manage institutions based on educational expertise typically maintain faculty respect and achieve better institutional outcomes. Community leadership situations demonstrate how civic authority responds to public confidence rather than public deference. Community leaders who ask residents for permission to implement initiatives, seek approval for community decisions, or request authority to represent neighborhoods typically lose public trust and community effectiveness. Their requests signal uncertainty about leadership capabilities, making residents question whether they possess the civic competence necessary to address complex community challenges. Leaders who implement initiatives confidently, make decisions authoritatively, and represent communities based on civic expertise typically maintain public trust and achieve better community outcomes. Religious organizational context reveal how spiritual authority responds to doctrinal confidence rather than doctrinal uncertainty. Religious leaders who ask congregations for permission to interpret teachings, seek approval for spiritual guidance, or request authority to provide religious direction typically lose congregational respect and spiritual effectiveness. Their requests signal uncertainty about theological capabilities, making congregants question whether they possess the spiritual competence necessary to provide effective religious leadership. Leaders who interpret teachings confidently, provide guidance authoritatively, and offer direction based on theological expertise typically maintain congregational respect and achieve better spiritual outcomes. Professional consulting relationships show how advisory authority responds to expertise confidence rather than expertise deference. Consultants who ask clients for permission to recommend solutions, seek approval for strategic advice, or request authority to implement improvements typically lose client confidence and consulting effectiveness. Their requests signal uncertainty about consulting capabilities, making clients question whether they possess the professional competence necessary to solve complex business problems. Consultants who recommend solutions confidently, provide advice authoritatively, and implement improvements based on professional expertise typically maintain client confidence and achieve better consulting outcomes. Investment banking environments demonstrate how financial authority responds to market confidence rather than market deference. Investment bankers who ask clients for permission to structure deals, seek approval for financial strategies, or request authority to manage transactions typically lose client trust and deal effectiveness. Their requests signal uncertainty about financial capabilities, making clients question whether they possess the banking competence necessary to handle complex financial transactions. Bankers who structure deals confidently, implement strategies authoritatively, and manage transactions based on financial expertise typically maintain client trust and achieve better deal outcomes. Technology startup ecosystems reveal how venture authority responds to innovation confidence rather than innovation deference. Startup founders who ask investors for permission to pursue innovations, seek approval for technology strategies, or request authority to develop products typically receive less investment confidence and funding support. Their requests signal uncertainty about innovation capabilities, making investors question whether they possess the entrepreneurial competence necessary to build successful technology companies. Founders who pursue innovations confidently, implement strategies authoritatively, and develop products based on technology expertise typically maintain investor confidence and achieve better funding outcomes. Media production environments show how creative authority responds to artistic confidence. Media producers who ask stakeholders for permission to create content typically lose stakeholder confidence and production effectiveness. Professional sports management contexts demonstrate how athletic authority responds to competitive confidence. Sports managers who ask athletes for permission to implement training programs typically lose athlete respect. Scientific research environments reveal how academic authority responds to intellectual confidence. Research scientists who ask peers for permission to challenge theories typically lose academic respect. Legal practice partnerships show how professional authority responds to legal confidence. Law firm partners who ask colleagues for permission to pursue cases typically lose professional respect. Financial advisory institutions demonstrate how fiduciary authority responds to investment confidence. Financial advisors who ask supervisors for permission to recommend investment typically lose institutional respect. The fundamental principle underlying all these contexts involves the paradox that seeking authority undermines the very confidence that generates authority naturally through demonstrated competence and decisive action. This paradox operates because humans evolved to follow leaders who displayed certainty during crises rather than those who expressed doubt during decision-making moments when hesitation could prove fatal to group survival. Modern environments often disconnect confidence from competence, but the psychological evaluation systems persist, creating situations where demonstrated authority generates more respect than requested authority. Understanding this dynamic enables strategic approaches to influence building that leverage demonstration over petition, action over application, and competence over humility in competitive contexts. The effective individual builds capability that naturally produces confident action, allowing authority to emerge through performance rather than seeking authority through permission that signals inadequacy. This approach typically produces more sustainable influence because it builds respect through effectiveness rather than creating obligation through request, making others want to follow rather than feeling asked to grant permission. The strategic insight recognizes that true authority requires no external validation because it demonstrates value through results rather than seeking approval through petition, creating respect that emerges naturally rather than requiring artificial construction.